and then it comes back to my turn, and I do an amazing huge combo, and then I'm thinking to myself, this thing has to be overpowered too. Hey, my name is Brent here on Cloudy at the Chance of Meeples. Today on the channel, we're going to be looking at Whistle Mountain, a worker placement game for 2 to 4 players. And if you follow the channel, you'll know that I love worker placement games. My favorite game mechanic, I love just, having whatever it's dice or workers and putting them out in different areas of the board to activate certain things or gain resources or gain special abilities or whatever, however it works in a specific game. But I love that mechanic of worker placement. Whistle Mountain is a worker placement with airships, and depending on the size of your airship, will reflect on what abilities, or maybe not abilities, but what resources you may gain. And the bigger the ship, potentially the more resources. We'll dive into this one. Final forecast coming up. Cue the thunder. So the radar overview for Whistle Mountain. Here you have it. It is a ginormous amount of components in this one, and just tons and tons of victory points and unique different resources that look really cool, really shiny. They're all unique. You got water, and you got coal and iron, and you got gold, and of course a whistle, because it is Whistle Mountain. So this game is a worker placement game. Each player will get their own little player board. You have few different colors: red, blue, yellow, and black. And then you'll get 3 different ships. Guess you call this would be like a 1x1 on the grid. You got a hot air balloon, you got the 2x1, a blimp, and then you have the 3x1, the dreadnought. I think it's a dreadnought, but anyways, you put them on your player board in your little docks, and you will be using these ships to go about this board and on this grid. I've set up this grid, what it might look like somewhat during a game. And yes, this will be like the Cole's Notes overview of this game. There is a pretty thick rule book that has all the iconography. There's a ton of iconography in this game. It has references for the cards and the starting abilities and the upgrades and all the machines. You get a huge stack of starting abilities, which every game will be wildly different as a result of these. And just tons of components. How does this game play? Well, on your turn, you'll be doing one of 2 main actions, which with a possibility of a bonus action of either playing a card and or using an award. One of your main actions would be to put one of your ships out. And as you see, there's docks around the side and the top of the board, and you could be putting, a ship here. At that point, you would gain 1 scaffold. You just take the top one off any one of these stacks. You could pay a whistle to get a second one, or 2 whistles to get 2, or to get 3. You go to the top, gain cards. You could go to the left side. This is where all these cool machines will be available. You go up here, 2 coal gains any one of these small machines, and the bigger the machine, the higher the cost. You could also use your worker to go on the board, and this is where this game really stands out, where every game will be wildly different because players will be building the worker placement spots. So if you take one of your ships, let's say I would take this blimp. At that point, I can't put it on any of the scaffolding, but I can put it beside any scaffolding. So if I put it here, I would gain 1 whistle. If I put it here, at that point, I'd gain 1 iron and 2 water. But then you have some really cool sections where you can create some really good locations. 1 gold, 1 iron, 1 coal, 1 water. Or here down below, 2 waters, or actually 3 waters, a whistle and a coal. So depending on the size of these airships will reflect on how many resources or which resources you get. So that's one of the main actions: collect. Putting one of your airships out and then collecting. It could be upgrades, gears. If you get this one, wilds for the whole game. Or sorry, iron for the whole game, or then wilds. You got an extractor. Anytime you build a scaffold, you can take a resource that's on the scaffold that you build. So there's many different ways and places to get resources or to get upgrades. The second thing you can do on your turn, the second main action, is to forage. At that point, you pull all your ships back and start building. You can build any either scaffold or building or machine, for free. If you want to build a second time, it will cost you water. A third time, it'll cost you another water. Now, on top of that, you can either move a worker or rescue a worker. Well, what does that mean? Well, as you see, you have this ladder, this scaffold on this left side. These are workers that you're going to want to promote to the right side onto this ladder. So if you spend a gold, you can move a worker onto scaffolding. There you go. They cannot cover any icon, but you can promote them if you build a machine. So why would you want to move them over? Well, I just said you want to promote them. So I could move a worker there, and then I could build. Let's say I want to build this treasure map. At that point, I'd move this guy over and I would build this. And now there's kind of a new location. I could put a ship here. I could put it directly on top of the machine. At that point, I would activate any other machine, or any adjacent machine, which I'll show you momentarily. So if a worker goes over there, they're going to be worth the victory points shown on the side at the end of the game. And if there's any ever award, you will then get to take it. And this you could use on your turn to have a free build. Again, you could also play a card or a card. So you could have some like pretty massive turns throughout the game. And as you progress in this game, you'll be just building up and building up this scaffolding here. Just going to put a few things on and just show you exactly what I mean by that. You could then, later on play, or maybe it's something like that. At that point, you could put your machine beside and you would trigger both machines. So as you just progress in this game, you'll get bigger and bigger combos, and you'll be working on creating some pretty cool combos that you will be using yourself, but also your opponents will be using it at the same time. So as you see, here's a danger line. Anytime a machine is built above that danger line, there's too much heat, the water or the ice caps or the ice on the mountains, there we go, are melting and they're flooding this valley. So at that point, anytime a machine is above that line, you would then flood. Any character that's in this barrack that's going to be flooded is sent to the whirlpool, and you would then move that up. And as you could tell, you would continue moving this up, and you'd be flooding these machines. Different characters would be moved into this whirlpool, which at the end of the game, each character or each meeple in the whirlpool is -5 points. So you'll want to just watch that. And so you're going to be saving your workers. So the game ends when this whole area is flooded, and you'll have a whole bunch of guys on these different tiers who have been promoted. And then you count up your victory points. Whoever has the most would be the winner. Like I said, this is the Cole's Note version of Whistle Mountain. Let's check out the final forecast. So the final forecast for Whistle Mountain, a worker placement game for 2 to 4 players. As I said at the top video, worker placement, my favorite game mechanic. And this worker placement game is a unique one. And it is a unique one because in most worker placement games, you have fixed locations, whether it be on a map or a board or whatever the case is. You go to one location, you get something. Go to another location, activate something. Go to another location, maybe swap something. Like, it's the same thing every time. You know how to play the game. It's like an Everdell. All the forest locations, they change, but all the basic locations, they're all the same. You go here, you get 3 twigs every game. It's always the same. So lots of worker placement games are like that. This one changes things and flips it on its head, because you as the player and the players combined build the worker placement spots every game. As you saw, you have a whole bunch of scaffolding that you'll be putting on Tetris style, like manipulating them, putting them on there to put machines on there, and every game is going to feel wildly different depending on what machines come out and how players are interacting with each other, how they're building that scaffolding, trying to, move their workers across, and just, man, this can be a pretty tense and can be a pretty cutthroat game with a lot of jockeying for position on machines, on, in that area with the scaffolding, where to put your different ships, which ones to use at which time, because the small one, obviously it's only 1 by 1, but depending on which machines are around and what resources you're able to get, it might be more beneficial, or maybe put it on the outside and grab some of those upgrade gears which seem overpowered. There's so many things in this game that seem overpowered, huge combos to be had, and I absolutely love that. I feel every game I play, I'm sitting across looking at my opponents, and they are doing their turns and they're activating this machine, and because their special starting ability allows them to do this, and they have one card and then they have an award that lets them do all these huge combos, and it's so satisfying, and I'm looking at them saying it's got to be overpowered, and then it comes back to my turn and I do an amazing huge combo, and then I'm thinking to myself, this thing has to be overpowered too. And there's so many different combos in this game that just seem overpowered. I love the upgrades that make certain resources wild or give you resources back when you build scaffolding. I love, deck diving. If you have a ton of cards, you can play a card on every one of your turns. And I didn't showcase what the cards do, but they let you, buy a small machine without putting a worker there, or, just saving someone from the whirlpool without having to put a worker there, or use the gold. Like, there's just so much in this game, and it's just an absolute fantastic design. I will say this on the negative side, the components, they're great. I don't like the puzzle board because it doesn't sit flat. And I understand they had to do the puzzle board because the holders that hold the water tiles need to snap into the board. You take them out every time, so they had to do a puzzle board. I understand that. I would have also loved to see just a basic insert in this, because there are, like I said, and you saw, ton of resources, tons of just punch outs, and you have to put each of them in their own separate bags. So setup and tear down can be quite long because there's so many components in this game. Those are the negative things, but overall I absolutely love this game. Worker placement, my favorite game mechanic, and from the first time I ever saw this one, I was just like tickled pink, because it's worker placement that's different every time. There's 17 starting abilities, and for those in the board gaming hobby, to get any game to the table in a calendar year 18 times with the amount of games out there, like, for the majority of people, you're not going to see so much content in this game because there is so much content. And every game is going to feel wildly different depending on how players are building that scaffold. I've played games where players are building that scaffold just straight up, buying different machines, smaller machines, and building that thing straight up, moving their workers across, just to promote them to climb that ladder for the higher victory points. I've played games where it's spread out more, where it takes a little bit longer because you're not racing to the top and you're trying to come up with some pretty sweet synergies in having different buildings, or not buildings, sorry, having different machines side by side. So you're activating multiple machines per turn. This game is going to be dependent on, the arc of the game is going to be dependent on your play group, because if you have people who are kind of racing to the end, it may fall flat for you. But for a game that takes a little bit longer, and there's a lot of just tension, when to pull back, when to forage, those are some tough decisions in this game, because you only have a certain amount of turns and you don't know how many turns you have, but it's like every turn you have to make the most of it. And on those turns where you do make the most of it, you can have some amazing combos, moving, promoting a couple workers, saving one from the whirlpool, moving another one, building a machine, moving them over, activate or getting the victory point to the machine. Like, you could easily have a turn where you're gaining, upwards to 25 victory points. And so it's just so satisfying to have those turns. Overall, I absolutely love Whistle Mountain. Like, this is an absolute, just crazy good game. If you like worker placement, if you love just, intense games. I will say it does go longer than my sweet spot. My sweet spot in gaming is 30 to 60 minutes. This is like 60 to 90 minutes. And again, it all depends on the player interaction on how long this game will go, because it maybe even go longer than 90 minutes. But overall, fantastic game. If you like worker placement, you love satisfying combos, you love just an insane amount of variety and replayability, check out Whistle Mountain. Check us out on Facebook, Cloudy with the Chance of Meeples. By the way, I'm giving this one 90% chance of Meeples. Forgot to mention, 90% chance of Meeples for Whistle Mountain, because it is absolutely fantastic. Check us out on Facebook, Cloudy with the Chance of Meeples. My name is Brent. Till next time, grab your umbrella. The forecast is cloudy with a chance of Meeples.